Hello once again. It's the Frankly Harry podcast. I'm your host, Frank Weber. I'm so glad you could join me in the forest today. I've got a very packed show and a lot of stuff to talk about today, a lot of fun stuff. We'll go ahead and get started. Last week I was talking about Halloween, and my shows, of course, are a little bit behind on that. But Halloween has come and gone now, and so I'll tell you a little bit about how it went. I haven't put my pictures up yet of my costume, but I did wear a purple toga with sandals and the laurel on the head. I guess sort of like a Roman emperor. And then I had a choice. I wound up, I did wear underwear underneath the outfit, but it was very hard to move around and couldn't really sit down in the toga. And then there was a question about whether I should wear a shirt or not. And I have pictures, by the way, of both shirt and no shirt. I also have pictures of me with a sword, which looks kind of dorky. But I wound up going with the shirt just in order to not scare the kids and not to make the parents think that I was like some kind of deviant or sex offender or something like that, because you never know these days. As far as the reactions go, I think a lot of people recognize that I was some sort of Roman emperor or Greek god or Roman god or something like that. One kid thought I was Jesus, and it did look a little bit like something Jesus would wear, but I didn't have the beard, I didn't have a halo, and I had a sword with me, so I wasn't actually Jesus. But I'll go ahead and post those as soon as I can, maybe after I get off the recording here today. Maybe I'll let you do a poll on it or something like that. Of course, this show is not going to air, though, until November 13th, so maybe I'm playing the Halloween thing a little bit too long. But let's see here. Oh, yeah. So anyway, I'll get those up there. As far as the trick-or-treaters go, it was a fairly steady stream. I'm not sure if we still get as many to the house as we used to, but I'm always amazed. A lot of the kids these days, they don't really talk to you. The parents, they stay out further outside toward the sidewalk and the street, and they let their kids come up and do the candy. A lot of them, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them wouldn't say trick or treat or happy Halloween or anything like that. They were kind of quiet. They would just hold their bag out. And a few of them saw me coming. They wouldn't even come completely to the door or knock on the door or anything. It's weird. It seems like a very passive generation now. But they were generally good kids. I'm always kind of perplexed. Some of them try to get past my threshold to the house, which is really kind of weird, but I'm almost into the house. I always have some that say I have a lovely house, and I say thank you. I think we do. And anyway, overall, it was a very good Halloween. It came and gone. Came and went, I should say. Well, the only other thing is I think I returned the sword to the store the next day, as well as one small bag of candy. So overall, it was pretty good. I gave out gummy bears this year. And those little gummy bear packs, there was only like 5 to 1 pack. It was really crazy how small it was. But anyway, it was good. I enjoy hosting Halloween. I enjoy seeing all the costumes. I really enjoyed dressing up this year. Wasn't quite as risque as I had originally planned it, but oh well. The other thing I wanted to tell you here before we get into the main part of the show, I mentioned a lot of things on this show that I want to get to and may eventually get to, but I do a lot of experimentation. It's very fluid. I talked to a friend about a week ago. We may do a joint podcast together, or we may not. I haven't really heard from him since then. I need to kind of catch up with him, what his thoughts are. But I do intend to keep doing this solo podcast, or I may, of course, continue or may start to get guests on here and maybe start to do some video. I'm a little confused as to how to get the song and some sort of opening placard with my my podcast art on it. But everything is fluid. Everything's kind of experimental, talking about new things each and every day. And I'm so glad to bring you good content, good information. I hope you find it to be good content and information, and kind of looking forward to getting a little bit more interaction, likes and comments, things like that. I've noticed the numbers on this podcast recently have gone through the roof. I mean, there are so many people downloading so much, at least during the week between shows, and I'm getting a lot of likes and comments. Well, I'm not getting that many likes and comments, but I am getting some interaction now on Twitter, as I made a few posts and comments, such as advertising for this show, for instance. So, but anyway, I think we're going in a good direction, and I'm really kind of excited about where the future holds. Obviously, suggestions for topics and suggestions for guests would be really helpful to me, and maybe how to contact them. You as listeners can really help me with that, because I'm kind of lost actually as to who to call and who to seek out as guests. I mean, I have some ideas, but I don't know how accessible some people really are. I really want to go big. Okay, so I just finished an article that I'm releasing. As of this recording, it'll be released or dropped on November 5th on the Life's Comedic Odyssey site, about my final thoughts on the 2024 election. And to some extent, I kind of felt like maybe it was against my better judgment to write further on the election. I'm really kind of trying to shy away from politics and opinions on that, and I've actually, I've talked about the election and the candidates a few times, and obviously trying to get away from that and not do it too much anymore. So, but it's fairly unbiased, fairly statement and fact based, I would say. So definitely check that out. At the end of the article, I basically said, though, and this is something that could lead to a lot of further discussion on this show, or in the written site, whether I do a written article or an audio article, which I've done quite a bit of lately, by the way, and I've had some pretty good responses. I'm doing audio reposts the last couple of Thursdays, and seems like people have responded to them reasonably well, as they're responding to this podcast. But anyway, at the end of my final election synopsis, where I gave some predictions and what the future holds in store, also a couple of different trivia things are in there as well. I told people told everybody else that politics in this country is not likely to change without some sort of cultural and societal revolution, or at least some sort of renaissance, may be a better word for it. Not that I'm intending any kind of violent or unpeaceful revolution. I mean, you can do it in a peaceful way. I used to hear all the time in my younger years, when I knew less about the Bible and Christianity and Jesus, even though I was a believer, that Jesus was a revolutionary, and he still is a revolutionary, because he was anti-establishment, and he came from heaven and told people, whether they chose to follow him or not, about how things really were. And that's kind of what I'm doing here, even though I'm not Jesus, but I do want to be a vessel for him and for change. I'm Christian in my faith, even though I know sometimes it doesn't seem like it on here with some of the swearing that I do and the raciness. I'm not a racist, but I do racy things on here, racy, sexy things sometimes. But anyway, it got me to thinking a little bit about what kinds of things would lead to a renaissance, or might lead to a renaissance. And I'm already doing or appreciating three things that I wrote down here. One of the things in our society would be for more people to listen to alternative sources of information like this podcast or blogging or a video, whether they call it a podcast or some sort of video commentary like on YouTube, kind of like something Dave Rubin does. He takes clips from other shows and comments on them, which is an interesting way to do things. Any kind of alternative media like that is going to be better, I think, than listening to the legacy media, which is very corporatized and actually entertainment-based now. It's all about money and all about what their bosses want. And so shows like this and many other podcasts, as well as sources like Substack with the written word, as well as audio and video commentaries, that's going to be the best way to go to get truly lasting change when it comes to politics and leadership. Excuse me. What's going on and on there? Because you've heard the old saying that politics is downstream of culture and society, and we have to get our values prioritized and balanced again. And so obviously these alternative media sources like this show and other things are going to be a big start to doing that. Okay, so the second thing, and by the way, this list is certainly not exhaustive anyway. Somebody years ago, actually I think it was in church or Sunday school somewhere, told me what the word university actually means. And I know that conjures up a lot of thoughts these days, and considering what kinds of things universities are teaching the kids, and are they really making them think and learning how to critically think and not just creating an agenda and spewing it on them, But the word university actually means unity with diversity. So it's actually like not a conjunction, but a combined word. And we have to, and this is not as easy to say how to do this exactly, but we have to have a greater appreciation for our different strengths amongst the different people, and have a unity within the great diversity within our country. Now, this isn't the same thing. When I was thinking about going to college back in the 90s, they were all pushing diversity, 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 and that was kind of a red flag to me, and I had this weird gut feeling that this isn't exactly something that's good or what I want, because they were actually talking about diversity of people and ideas that are not of the traditional American Christian or Judeo-Christian sort of tradition. They were wanting something else, it seemed, diversity amongst things that are not traditionally American or Western or Judeo-Christian. The other folks can kind of just go away, it seemed like they were saying. But when you look at the actual word university, unity within diversity, that's what we have to somehow find and cultivate and use to our better judgments going forward. That's one of the amazing things, by the way, not to go back on politics, but to have Donald Trump's campaign this time around have Democrats and RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, a young Republican and Vivek Ramaswamy, and a former Democrat and big entrepreneur and innovative guy like Elon Musk. That is a picture of unity within diversity. And it seems like he's going to win, probably by quite a bit, from the feeling that's going around. But it would be interesting to see how that dynamic works amongst all those people. And assuming he wins and makes it and has this next administration, the answer may be out there by the 13th when the show airs. But and I praised that, by the way, earlier on this program, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, whenever it was. But we have to look for opportunities to work together, as opposed to look for differences to pull us apart. And so that's the big second point. The last thing that I would recommend working towards that renaissance in society and culture. Now, this may be controversial with some of you. I don't know. I don't know exactly how you go about this. I mean, it may be different for different people, but we have to reestablish a faith in something or someone higher than ourselves. And in so doing, create like a better standard again for our lives and for values and behavior. We can't have a society where it's just anything goes. My personal preference and experience is Christianity, with Jesus Christ. I guess I've kind of been around Christianity and the church my entire life. I guess I really technically accepted him in the late 90s when I was in college at Texas Tech. But as I've lived life, I've gone about in years, gained some experience, the words of Jesus and the Bible and the gospel messages and everything have sort of transformed and taken on a new meaning, much more than I knew 25, 30 years ago. It's really amazing. Basically, and I tell people this, if you want to, now where should I go with this exactly? I have kind of let me just say this. If you want to know as much as God is willing to reveal to you about himself and his ways and his word, maybe even the direction for your life, I get that we may not know everything in this life and not before we go to heaven or before the eternal kingdom. Heaven and earth are supposed to one day become one. It may be a long time before we know everything. But if you pray to have him reveal himself more to you in his ways and his love and to give you understanding and stuff, he will open the floodgates and you will learn so much more than any church or any clergy will ever teach you. Now, let me give you a little example of this here. So I decided, I don't think that I had ever read through the entire Old Testament before, and I'm still working my way through it this time. I have read the New Testament and everything. But reading it from cover to cover, the Bible, the entire Bible, you will read about and learn so many things, and then so many things will begin to make sense to you. The thing that I've been reading about lately, I just finished Leviticus and now I'm on Numbers, and I know this is early Jewish history, our Jewish ancestors, and there was so many rules and laws, and the only way to be forgiven for your sins back then was to take animal sacrifices to the tent of meeting, which later became the temple in Jerusalem, for instance. But the funny thing is, as much as I've sinned in my life, let me backtrack a little bit. If I had been like an old school Jewish guy, we're talking Moses and Aaron of that era, maybe even some later, like, David and Solomon, those guys. I think I would have been in the tent of meeting like all the time, because I've sinned so much. I would never leave. It's kind of like the old Bill Clinton joke about how many times does he lie in one day? Well, if you set your ceiling fan on high and count the revolutions for 24 hours, that was supposedly the number of lies that he had. But But then, of course, I'm thinking, like, how many times do I sin in a day or a week or a year or whatever? I mean, I would, like, have to put my tent up, my home, next to the tent of meeting. I mean, it's really crazy how it was a lot harder to have sins forgiven, and you couldn't really have an individual relationship with God back then. And now, for those who believe like myself, Jesus has made a way directly to God and forgiven all of our sins, and things are so much easier and so much clearer in my view. But that's one of the things that I think would help us a lot in this world, to rediscover faith, reground ourselves, have someone or something that's higher than us and we're accountable to. I think we have to do that. I was just talking there, just thinking in that time, I am a bit of a critic of organized religion. And I was actually going to do like a whole show on this one time, but might as well do it here. And I know there's a lot of different flavors in Christianity and Judaism, Islam, lots of the great religions, Hinduism and Buddhism. I mean, there's a lot of different sects, SECTS, and denominations and whatever. And I would think the vast majority of them are good, but you have to find one that's right for you. Anyway, the point of the matter is, most of these churches, speaking from Christianity point of view, most of these churches and their clergy, they either don't have the time or the inclination to teach you everything they possibly know about God and the Bible. Some of it is because they're on a schedule each and every day of the year, or they're products of a system, or perhaps there's a lower priest or preacher who experienced something close to home, and they might be able to relay that and talk about it in church or whatever, but then it may not necessarily fit with church doctrine. And so I don't know how much the organized places of worship, I don't know how flexible they are on a lot of stuff. I don't know if they would allow for that, because there are some outside the box things that have been revealed to me that you're probably never going to hear in a church. You could go every week or every day, and you just won't hear about it for various reasons. And sometimes the organized religions also have an agenda on top of things. I mean, they're not really, I don't think most of them are after money, but they do have agendas and ways that they view the world and the ways that they view God. And one of my big pet peeves, though, too, is certain Christian groups will proselytize other Christians and try to get them to come over to their way. I think that's a waste of time when you have a lot in the world who have never heard of Jesus Christ, and you have the opportunity to be a blessing to those folks, as opposed to trying to convert your brothers and sisters. It doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me. Well, perhaps I'm digressing too much from the original point, but obviously a good church or whatever faith you might be of, be a good starting point for building values, building a faith, setting some standards for yourself and family members, maybe friends, if they're of like mind. If we can do that, I think that would go a long way toward bringing society and culture back to where it more ideally should be, and changing our politics. I was just making a joke about Bill Clinton. He lent himself, and his administration lent itself to so many jokes over the years. I mean, he was a true treasure trove. And a lot of what we're seeing now, it's the same thing with everybody who's in leadership. And I don't care what politics they're in. I don't care if they're in the court or in the House or the Senate or the presidency or whatever. They all should be open for joking, and I don't think we're doing that nearly as much. But anyway, I have a lot of ideas to kind of as to where to take faith-based stuff further. I have this idea, and I don't know if this article will be out or not by the time this airs, but I do think that there's one sermon that I heard a long time ago was the concept of heaven on earth, and there's also a hell on earth. And I think the sermon was basically based on two different sets of choices, but I think it's a lot more than that. I think there really is a heaven on earth, and yeah, there's a lot of places that are hell on earth too. We can be a heaven on earth toward other people through our choices and actions. God, through His grace, has allowed us also to experience a certain heaven on earth based on certain places, certain activities. The earth's natural beauty, for instance. You just have to know where to find those. And I think that article could be a real blockbuster. I've already written an outline for it, but I don't want to tell you too much about it. But it's definitely one that I will be releasing here on Substack pretty soon, and may have an audio version of it as well. I may even do it in 2 parts, but we'll have to see about all that. Anyway, I will just, one last thing I'll share with you about faith as part of this cultural and societal revolution. I've really had my eyes open lately. The scales have fallen from them, and I've seen so many different things, different ways of viewing the world, the way that it was created and the way that it should be. I mean, I know we can't get back to the Garden of Eden or to heaven immediately, especially if we're still here on this earth, but I'm just tremendously amazed by just all that I've learned, and hope to share so much of it with you. A lot of it, by the way, some of it is outside the box thinking, which you won't always get in an organized religion. Not to be dorky or anything, but it's also, I know back when Yoda was training Luke in, I think it was Empire Strikes Back, he said you have to unlearn what you have learned in order to open your mind and see the new facts as they were and the new possibilities. And there's so many things. I mean, some of them are subjective, some of them may be controversial, but I plan to share those with you as much as I can. Maybe we'll even make it into a weekly segment. Maybe if there's one thing that I've learned in a particular week or something like that. But anyway, that's all I have for this show right now. The counter is getting up there again. We're getting close to half an hour. I knew I'd have a lot to say in this show. One last thing on the Halloween thing I would say, though. Since I was wearing the toga or the cloak, purple with a tunic, I thought I looked a little bit like Dom DeLuise from History of the World. Look up that movie if you haven't seen it. But I don't know, he was kind of a big guy, funny guy, a very funny guy, and would have been cool to hang around with him. Unfortunately, he passed some time ago. And I guess I'll also share with you, the funeral may be over by the time you get this, but my Uncle Bob passed away just a couple of days ago, and please keep his only daughter, Marianne, and the family in your prayers. Planning on going down there here maybe in the next couple of days. So I'm going to interrupt my regular weekly routine here for that. He was like 93 or 4. Was one of the longest living family members we've had, and so that's one of the things my brother and I are always talking about is, are we going to make it to at least 70, or are we going to live well into our 90s, or go somewhere in between? We're kind of, that's always running across our minds, even though we're not even to 50 yet. So, but anyway, just keep us in your prayers and pray for safe travel, and pray for, well, I know we're still the day before Election Day as I record this, but pray for a good election, pray for peace, peaceful transition, because it's going to be a new president from Biden anyhow. Pray for our country and our world, and pray to end suffering, violence, whatever it is, and pray for that heaven on earth concept, which is real. It's not just a concept, it's real. Anyway, I'm going to call it a show right here. As always, please hit the subscribe button. Tell your family, friends, coworkers, anybody you run out to in the world about It's a Frankly Harry podcast, or Life's Comedic Odyssey, which is my Substack. I even have a button for just comment and like and direct messaging on Substack. Seem to be having a lot of fun on Twitter these days. Finally getting a lot of people to follow me, particularly of the blue checkmark variety. I recently invested in that, so I think all that information is either in my website or in the description of the show here. So anyway, I've gone on too long. I need to go now, but I'll see you again next week. I love you, fans, and really excited to see where everything is going. So until next time, Frank Weber, so long.